Welcome to Unleashing Happiness with Cecilia Hendricks, the podcast where we'll share ways to change your mindset, change your habits, and change your life. Hi all, welcome back. It's Cecilia Hendricks, your host of Unleashing Happiness. I've got a few topics to talk about today that I think go in line perfectly with what I've talked about over the past 8 weeks. So today is the 9th episode, which means this will actually be going into the 9th week that I have been doing the podcast. I feel absolutely amazing about that. It's been going really well, and this is something I greatly enjoy. I actually enjoy it even more than I think I realized that I would when I got started with this. So I'm really happy that you're here and that you're enjoying it. I've been noticing that I'm getting more reviews on the podcast that are positive, and I really appreciate those. And so for everybody who's left a review, I just want to send out a quick thank you. It really means a lot. It helps me know that I'm kind of on the right track of what I'm talking about, that other people are finding it beneficial. And then also it tells the podcast, hosts like Apple and Spotify, etc., that this is a podcast that they should encourage others to listen to as well, which definitely helps my growth and get me out to other people. I think the information I'm giving is helpful. It's really helped me in my life, and that's why I wanted to start sharing it, was because I found something that really helped me. I had been really lost, kind of trying to figure out how the law of attraction or law of assumption stuff worked. I heard all these successful people that I really looked up to talk about these techniques, but figuring out a way to actually do them, I found difficult. So I know that's within my own perception, right? The way that I'm seeing things, the way that I'm able to hear their teachings. It's all my own perception. And I think that's why there can be so many different teachers. And sometimes somebody may like Joseph Murphy. Somebody might really be into Tony Robbins. Somebody may be really into Mel Robbins, Neville Goddard. Whoever it is because your perception of the way that you hear them, the way that you take their message, and how they resonate with you changes based on the state of understanding that you're in. So I decided to start doing mine from my state of understanding and these pragmatic ways of really focusing on how to change the way that I identify the state that I'm living in. And a lot of that came down to being super honest with myself. Even recently, I've had to be honest in my life about the relationships that I have, where I'm putting my attention, where I'm putting my focus, and the type of focus that I want to put into the relationships in my life. And I've said before that I believe part of that is being a bit selfish. I've also used the term self-prioritize, which I think is also a fantastic term. Selfish is definitely a bit more controversial because it usually comes with a negative connotation. And it's because the definition is definitely more negative, right? Is being selfish is focusing on yourself really at the expense of others. And that's not quite how I mean it. So self-prioritizing may be more of what I'm looking for, but selfish, I think, kind of holds it a little bit better and gets the message across a bit more clear. Because when you're selfish, you're really focusing on yourself. And the reason to do that is not at the expense of anybody else within your life or the relationships within your life, but it's to say that until I'm right, I can't be right for you. So it's not that I'm taking everything away from like my family or my friends or the relationships that I have within my life. It's that I want to be able to give more. And the only way that I can give more is if I'm in a good place. If my state of being is only allowing me to see the negative and perceive the negative in my world, or maybe even further than that, in somebody who's struggling on a day-to-day basis to find any joys within their day, to get up out of bed, to be able to do much of anything, they're not able to give to their loved ones. When you are really taking care of yourself, you're focusing on your mind, your body, your spirit, and you're putting yourself in a really good position. You're feeling good. You've got energy. You're just like sending out more forgiveness. you suddenly are able to give more to the people around you because you selfishly are also focusing on yourself first. And I know it sounds weird, right? And of course, using the word selfish makes it sound even more weird. But it's all about this, filling of your cup and making sure that you take care of yourself first. There's nothing wrong with this. And I know myself as a mother, I kind of constantly gave. And I actually have watched a mother over the past few years who I'm relatively close to. And she has always been this super upbeat, beautiful person. And not to say that she's not now. I actually find her completely remarkable. She always looks so fantastic. She's got the sweetest smile. She's funny, and she is a wonderful, wonderful mother. But I have been able to watch over the years as her overall kind of attitude has changed a little bit, and she just seems a little bit more beat down. And you can address that that's coming from her family situation. And it's not because she doesn't have wonderful kids or a husband who loves her. It's nothing like that. But it's like when you continue to give in this absolutely selfless way, but you end up giving more than you have because you're not replenishing. And even though you may be happy in your life, there's still probably something that's nagging at you. And I can say that because I don't know this about her. She hasn't shared this with me, but I can say that because I was in the same position. I absolutely loved my family. I've always been family first. My kids are definitely top of that list. I would do absolutely anything for them. And I have a fantastic relationship with them. But I did go through a period of time where I was just tired. And I was tired because I felt like I had to do everything, and everything included nothing for myself. And my state, the perceptions that I had of the world, the identity that I had at that time, really allowed me mostly to see what everybody else didn't do for me. My kids were really young at this point. It's nothing like that. But it's like, well, I've got friends who never invite me out. I've got this person who I feel like all the housework is, on my shoulders. I have to do all the cooking and all the cleaning, and I have to do all this and all that. And I never express this stuff either. So it's like, here I am, complaining and just in my head kind of going over like all this stuff that I do and nobody else does anything else. And as I began in the past few years to shift my focus back to myself and making sure that I was filling my cup first and I was prioritizing me, all of a sudden my perception started to shift, and I could see all these things that people were doing to help me out that I was blind to start because I was so focused on all the things that they didn't do. And I'm like, well, there's this whole huge list of things that they do every single day that are in support of me, showing love to me, showing help to me, and trying to make sure that I'm not overwhelmed. And I was completely blinded by it or from it because of the state that I was in. So that's a lot of what I'm trying to talk about here, is that you start to shift when you prioritize yourself, you take care of you, and then you start to see things that were really there all along, but you were unable to perceive them because of the state of mind you were in. Okay, with that said, I'm actually going to go ahead and shift because it's rather funny. This was not part of the topics that I had on hand for today, but I do think that they go hand in hand. So one of the things I want to talk about today is the way that you talk to yourself. And this goes for things about yourself internally, like your physical being or the way that you think as a person, and also the way that you're talking to yourself about others. Are you carrying on mental arguments with people? Are you expecting the worst out of them? Are you really kind of projecting this negative event that has not even happened yet, and you're already bracing yourself for it? The second one is talking about small habit changes. So as you're looking at the habits that you want to change within your life to align more with the person that you want to be, your ideal self, your ideal life, that you are really looking small. And it comes down to what James Clear says is the 1% better. So if each day you focus on becoming 1% better, overall, you're actually going to end up better in the long run. And it's much more sustainable changes. That ties hand in hand with habit habit stacking, which I'll get a little bit more into. This has been something that I have really enjoyed, and I actually did without realizing it had a name for a while. But then once, probably about like 6 or 8 months ago, when I started getting more into the habits, reading the books about the habits and following other teachers who talk about habits, that I started learning about habit stacking. And I just find it remarkable. It's made my walks better. It makes me folding laundry better. It makes me cleaning the kitchen better. So I want to talk about that one as well. And then last, tying it all together with talking about your environment. Is your environment actually set up for your success? And this can go both ways, either setting it up so that you do something or setting it up so you don't do something, right? So like you want to replace a habit with something new, making sure that you're set up for that new piece. Or you want to stop a habit, so you're removing a reminder about that piece. Today, I'm going to focus more on the setting it up so you start something new, you shake up that routine and do something different. So let's get going. The first thing is to talk about the way that you're talking to yourself. So I read a book, gosh, it's been a while now, but it's by Richard Dotz. It's the 955 code. Definitely recommend it. I'll link it below in the show notes because I do find it to be a remarkable book. And I had this kind of awakening moment within reading that book that if you are working on techniques to change your life, so let's say that you're doing like a Neville Goddard visualization technique, either before you go to bed or sometime during the day, or you're doing something more in line with like a Joseph Murphy, where you're saying kind of affirmation prayers to change something of yourself. Those are really only taking up about 5% of your day. So when you really look at it, and 5% is probably a huge amount, actually, if you look at your day overall, that's a pretty small piece of it to have the 5%. But that's probably the time that you are consciously focusing on a type of technique to kind of change your day. So like if you're writing in a journal to write out like a future event as if it had happened now, that's a very small portion of your day. You're not doing that all day. If you're doing meditation to go into kind of that feeling, that's also just a really small part of your day. So if you figure that that takes up 5% of your day, this like conscious focusing on something, what the heck is going on for the rest of your day, this other 95% of your day? And what I found in a lot of folks that I've talked to, and definitely in myself in the past, the rest of that day would be focusing on the fact that it's not here, the direct opposite of it, or convincing myself that maybe I didn't do it right, or I'm not focusing correctly, or maybe that's not really what I want. And I'm kind of going back and forth. And so these conversations with myself for the rest of my 95% of the day is kind of negating what I'm doing for that 5%. And this is nothing more than another habit loop. So I'm spending my time saying, hey, I'm focusing on this end desire, this outcome that I want, but then, for the 5%, but then I'm spending the 95% of my day, and this is just waking hours that I'm breaking this up, but the 95% of my day focusing on the fact that I don't have it, it's not here, I'm not seeing signs of it, I keep working towards this, but I'm not getting anywhere, and blah, 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 blah. And a lot of times this comes down to the inactivity that we see in this community a lot of, well, I don't have to do anything. It's just, I've always been told that there's no action that needs to be taken. And I completely disagree with that. You every day are doing actions. Now, those actions are either in alignment with the person that you want to be, or they're in direct opposition. And I'm not talking about any forced action of saying like, I want to be a successful business owner. I don't really know what I want to be in business for, but I'm going to force myself to open a coffee shop because one popped up for sale in front of me. And I've decided that that's the thing that I should go for. Off of no like true feeling, like maybe even on the inside, I can tell that's not really what I want to do, but I'm forcing it because I believe that something has to happen. The same way if you're looking at a specific person and you're trying to find love in your life and you're like, well, I'm focusing on all this stuff. It's not here yet. So I'm going to send them this long message and kind of ream them about the love that they're not giving me and how I deserve it and how I'm tired of the way that they treat me and blah, blah, blah. If that's a state that you're in with a person or a business, it's time to shift. You are creating a habit loop for your emotions, your thoughts, the way that you're spending this 95% of your day that is not serving you. And you may not even recognize that quite yet. That's why when we take a step back and we start focusing on small changes, asking ourselves questions, becoming really curious about where we are, we start to kind of shift that mindset, right? We start to be able to see something that we weren't able to see before because our perception is changing. And I'm telling you, it's like an aha moment when your perception changes and you're able to be really honest with yourself that where your focus was, especially for the 95% of this day, was in direct opposition to what your actual desired outcome is. So if you say, this is my desired outcome, these are kind of the behaviors, habits, and actions that would be aligned with a person who's doing something like this or had this type of life. Are you actually doing that? I'm going to guess no. But if you can take a step back and say, okay, I'm not doing those things. What are small habits that I can add to my day that I can incorporate into habit loops that I'm already in to be able to kind of emulate that person, embody that person, I guess is the best way to say it. I'll use fitness for an example. If you want to be your absolute healthiest self and you list out, okay, this would be how I would look as my healthiest self. I would feel fantastic. My clothes would fit well. I would have tons of energy, whatever it is for you as your ideal healthy self. And then you would say, okay, well, if I was that person, how would I behave? What would I feel like when I went to bed? What would be the emotions that I had? How would I spend my 5% and how would I spend my 95%? How would I talk to myself? How would I treat others? How would I look at the world? How would I dress? How would I present myself? You can get super curious about all of these different things about the type of person that would be. And this is not an exercise to start beating ourselves up for the way that we are currently. You just accept it that this is a state that I'm in and these are habit loops that I have created in my life. And the really great part is I can change them at any point. So now, starting now, I'm making a choice that I'm going to change those. Any habit starts with a cue. It can be a time of day, it can be an event, it can be a place, whatever kind of thing that it is, it starts with a cue. A scent, I know that one can be a big one for me, but you have some sort of something that triggers this cue. And then you go into your routine. And so your routine would be kind of what has been created as a habit, most likely by repeated actions within your brain. And then your brain says, this is the most efficient way for me to get from point A to point Z. And so this is what I'm going to automatically fall into. This is the habit, the connections that I have. So you do cue, you go into your routine, and then you get whatever kind of reward that it is, whether that's a spike of dopamine, it is like a chemical release. If you're like a smoker, it's relaxation. It can be a whole list of things. But so that is the cycle that it goes in. You have cue, routine, reward. And the best way to change a habit is to not attempt to create a new one. Like these are already set up in your brain. So you want to start interrupting the routine that you have. So I use a lot as an example, waking up in the morning, grabbing your phone, laying in bed for an hour, scrolling your phone. Maybe it makes you feel bad. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're like, I'm fine with this to a certain degree, but I want to start being more productive. So I want to be my healthiest self. And for me, that maps out getting up and doing a walk in the morning, doing a meditation, eating breakfast, whatever it is to you that is saying this is a habit that would be of my healthiest self. So from there, you would pick something small. This is where this 1% better gets, right? A lot of times, especially if you're part of like the LOA community, it's like you want to do everything overnight. This was kind of the thing that I fell into. And it's not to say that change can't happen overnight. I absolutely believe that it can. I believe that there's going to be a lot of people listening to this episode now who are going to make a decision that they're going to change, and that's going to happen in an instant, right? They're going to be listening, they're going to get motivated, and they're going to say, you know what? I've decided I'm going to change. But for a lot of these habits that are really ingrained in our brain, it's going to take a while, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And actually, the more that you step back and do small changes that help you get this 1% better, the more sustainable it is. Because then you also are giving your brain something new to focus on, right? So you're creating this new identity, you're embodying your new self, you're feeling good because you are making small steps to becoming that person that you want to be. So as your healthiest self, you've decided, hey, I'm going to start getting up in the morning. I don't want to check my phone first thing. So you can do a couple of things, right? You want to interrupt that routine, especially in the morning, which is part of the reason why I use this as an example so much. You're a little out of it. At least I am when I first wake up. And I wake up early in the morning. I don't use an alarm. It's just naturally how I am. So I'm up and going. I don't really have an issue with getting up, but I'm still kind of like falling into habits, maybe even more so than other times of the day because I'm not fully conscious quite yet. So I want to replace this habit. I want to interrupt my routine. So my cue is waking up. I reach over, I grab my phone, and then I fall into the routine of scrolling my phone for an hour. And instead, maybe I'm going to place a glass of water where my phone would usually be. I'm going to charge my phone out in the other room, so it's much more difficult for me to get it. I could even put my workout clothes on top of wherever I'm charging my phone. So then even if I get up and I go to get my phone, I can be like, oh yeah, I'm doing something different. I'm becoming my ideal healthiest self, which means I'm going to put on my workout clothes instead of grabbing this phone. Or I'm going to charge my phone somewhere else and I'm going to have a sticky note, where my phone usually would be. That's like a note reminder of what I'm doing and the reason why I'm doing it, right? Like here's this reminder that I grab that just triggers in my brain like, oh yeah, I want to become healthier. I want to feel better. I want to have more energy. I want to do more during the day. I'm tired of the way that I'm living now, so I need to make habit changes. And it's a simple thing. Like, even if you start the day just by putting the workout clothes on, that's a 1% better. You don't have to do anything else. Just put them on. The next day you could, or even like 3 days after, you could then put on the workout clothes and do 5 minutes worth of yoga. That's a 1% better. You can also go a little bit bigger. Don't get me wrong. You put on the workout clothes, you go for a walk. Or maybe you've decided that yours is going to be eating breakfast. So you're going to get up and you're going to grab a breakfast, kind of whatever it is, bowl of cereal, whatever you're going to usually grab. And slowly you'll start to change that routine that you're maybe making yourself a breakfast that better fuels you for the day, makes you feel better, and is a bit healthier for you overall. But it's fine to start small. You can start by saying, okay, I'm going to wake up in the morning and instead of going through my phone, I'm going to do self-love affirmations for 2 minutes. Then I can get my phone. It's whatever works for you. You need to really start to self-experiment on what's going to work for you, what's going to get you where you want to be. And then start to congratulate yourself for it. Start to really identify these things that you're doing for yourself and that you feel good because you're doing it. Like, man, I feel good that I got my workout clothes on today. And I'm telling you, these little things start to have a domino effect. And so if you're in the workout clothes, I'm already in them. Why not go for a 10-minute walk? Well, I'm already out on my 10-minute walk and it's quite lovely out. So why don't I make it a 20-minute walk? And then it just starts to build on each other. And part of this is kind of where habit stacking comes in, right? So I enjoy going on walks. I go quite often, but I actually found myself a little bored on them, which I sometimes still enjoy having walks where I just look around and I listen to the birds and I maybe kind of hear the sights and sounds around me, but I hear the sounds around me, pay attention to the sights, and I become very mindful in that. But I really only have an attention span to do that at the most at this point for maybe 10 minutes. But my walk is usually 30 to 45 minutes. So I needed something else to do and I didn't want to get bored and come home. And I personally don't like to scroll my phone while I'm walking, but I then started listening to podcasts and I found that, so that's a habit stack, right? So I'm out on my walk already. I want to start learning more from these like wealth of information that's in podcast. So I'm going to add that to my walk. So now I'm going on this walk, I'm listening to a 45-minute podcast, and I'll find that I'll start looping the block or take a little bit different of a route just so that I can finish listening to the episode that I'm listening to. You can do this with an audiobook. You can do it with some new music that you wanted to listen to, really anything. And honestly, if you want to scroll your phone, by all means, use that time to scroll your phone. Say, I'm going to go on this walk and that's when I'll watch TikToks, or that's when I'll go through Instagram, is while I'm on this walk. Now, of course, pay attention still to your surroundings. Like when I'm walking and listening to my podcast, I only have one earbud in so that I can hear. I've got a dog that I walk with too, so he's pretty alert and paying attention to our surroundings as well, because we don't want to put ourselves into dangerous situations. And habit stacking can come even further than that. Like one that I started doing is I brew my coffee in the morning, and for a while when I was waiting, I would scroll my phone. You may notice a trend with me talking about scrolling the phone, because this was a habit that I had to work on. I really had a bad addiction to scrolling my phone very mindlessly, and it was not serving me well at all. I'm not somebody who ever looked and felt bad about my life or compared myself to others, but I would waste a lot of really precious time and my brain energy resources on scrolling something because it's simple, right? So a lot of these habits that don't serve us, it's because they're so easy for us to do. It doesn't take much of our energy. We can just sit and really zone out. But one of the habits that I started doing was while I'm waiting for my coffee to brew, I'll pick up the kitchen a little bit. A lot of times it's because the dishwasher needs to be unloaded. We tend to load the dishwasher before we go to bed, go ahead and run it. And then in the morning, there's clean dishes, and I'll unload the dishwasher while my coffee's brewing. And really the timing works out perfect. And then I've got something done. I feel like I've been productive. My coffee then is ready, and I'm ready to kind of start my day with a dishwasher that's ready for the upcoming dirty dishes. We eat dinner as a family probably 95% of the time. It's something that I really enjoy. It's important to us. We sit down and have dinner as a family. I've got 2 boys who still live in the house, and then of course my husband. And so we'll sit down, and after dinner, a habit that we've started is it's called 15-minute cleanup. So we set a timer. This stuff has to get done. And a lot of times it was falling to mom and dad to do all of the pickup. And I was like, that's not going to work. And so we set a timer for 15 minutes and we all start cleaning up the kitchen. So everything gets put away, table gets wiped down, dishwasher gets loaded, the dishes from whatever was cooked gets cleaned, sweep the floor, whatever it is, wipe down the counters. And then the kitchen's in a straight spot. We don't have to worry about it for the next day, run the dishwasher, and we're good to go. And here's the thing, because it's only this 15 minutes, for my boys, they know there's a time limit on this. And a lot of times we don't even hit the 15 minutes, right? We'll get to 10 minutes and we're all done. But here's this super simple habit that we've created, and it's a bit stacked because we're still chatting with each other and having a good time from our dinner. And it's a small 1% better, right? That ties into everything else I was talking about. It's only 15 minutes. And I've told my boys, when that timer's over, you're done. So even if the kitchen isn't clean and we're not done, the timer's up, we're done. And I've never had an issue with them slacking off or trying to get to the end of the timer without doing anything. So we all just get it done. And like I said, I think we've had some days where it's taken 8 minutes, because when you have 4 people doing it and you do it every single day, there's really not much to be done. So as you lean into your own life and looking at the things that you would like to change and have start working easier, start to become more curious about what are some 1% betters that you can do for yourself. And this is then in alignment with that 95% of the time that you're spending your day and how you're spending it. And I kind of wanted to talk, when we're looking at that 95%, with the way that you're talking about yourself during the day and to yourself. So I had a long time that I really struggled with mental arguments with people. So I was always bracing myself for something to go wrong, for the conversation to not go right, for them to say something maybe that I didn't want to hear, an action to happen on their behalf or mine that I really didn't want to have happen that would be in the negative. And there was a video that I recently saw that somebody said the reason that we do that is because it makes us feel like we're in control, right? We're already setting ourselves up so that way that there's no disappointment. But when you can start to shift the way that you're talking about yourself and just really start into yourself and just start catching yourself, like, why am I having a mental argument? There's really no reason for it. What is something else that I could replace that with? Because this now is an emotional and mental habit loop that you're in. So you have a cue, whatever it is that you're going to have a conversation with your spouse or your teacher or whoever it is. And then you have this routine that you go in that you start imagining the absolute worst. Maybe it's something with the way that you speak to yourself. Your cue is getting dressed in the morning, and you then begin to put yourself down in the way that you look and the way that you're living your life. And really, we're going to use the same techniques and the same tools that we've talked about leading up to this. We're going to become curious about why we're doing it. We're going to ask if this is aligned to our ideal self and the way that we want to behave and identify. Is this part of the state that we want to embody? And if the answer is no, then what is the way that we would prefer to behave? If we were our ideal self, living this remarkable ideal life, what would we do in this situation instead? What would give us the most peace in this situation? And this is something that then again comes back to being selfish. What it's about is more of my own peace, the way that I'm seeking peace in my life. Me staying angry with people, me feeling like I have to tell them off or lash out at them or think negatively about them in my head is not providing me any peace. And for me, my peace then reflects into the world and it comes back to me. And I just continue to get more peace in my life. And that to me is how forgiveness comes in. It naturally becomes more forgiveness and understanding that others are also having perceptions based on their own state, the place that they're in, for their identity, their state of mind. And it really is not an actual reflection of me. It's a reflection of them. I even recently had someone who really lashed out at me on my YouTube channel in the comments. And I was happy to say that I didn't feel the need to lash out back. I actually saw, and understood that this is coming from their perception. They're not understanding me because they're unable to perceive it. The state that they're in, clearly hurting, clearly upset, is not allowing them to see things the way that I feel I'm attempting to present them, in the way that I'm trying to help others with what I'm teaching. Now, because this person actually did lash out with personal attacks as well and calling me kind of names and saying things that weren't very nice, I just decided okay, that's fine. I'm sorry that you're hurting. I understand that you're unable to perceive what I'm trying to do here or the person that I am because of the state that you're in. This actually has nothing to do with me. A lot that they were lashing out about actually is not my beliefs at all, but I'm not going to attempt to defend myself against you. There's no point to it. I need my peace, and my peace is to hide you from my channel. I'm all up for debates and differences of opinions. I have no issue with that whatsoever. But once it becomes a personal attack, I'm not your punching bag because of the state that you're in. And this even goes to real life, quote unquote, not online folks as well. If there's somebody in my life that is not treating me well, and this is really difficult for me because I always want to give so much for forgiveness, and I always want to keep giving, the benefit of the doubt and continue to see the real good in people and understand this is only coming from the state that they're in and their current life situations. But at some point I have to say, you know what? No, this is for me to do better for me. I need to focus on myself. I need to make sure that I'm living in alignment with the type of life that I want to lead. And that is not one to be your punching bag or to be treated wrongly by you. I can wish you all the best, and I can also tell you goodbye. And that to me is also setting up your environment. So when I say that you want to set yourself up for success, this is also going to be the people that you allow in your life and that you're spending your time with. So it's Jim Rohn who said, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I'll add that you're also the average of the people you're giving your most attention and focus to, right? And so that one of those people should definitely be yourself. And that is part of your environment, the people that you're around. Years ago, I had a girlfriend that I absolutely adored. I really enjoyed spending time with her. I always thought that we had such a good time. And I noticed that for some reason, we fell into this loop then that we started going out, just the two of us. And it really, and this is like years ago, oh my gosh, like 20 years ago. And it really became where instead of enjoying ourselves, we were kind of sitting and just like complaining about how things weren't going our way and just being really negative on life and the way that events were going. And because of my state, I fell into this really easily, right? And then I just started feeling down about myself overall. I just wasn't feeling good about myself. And I realized looking back on it that one, I'm happy that I'm out of that kind of behavior now. That's never a way that I would want to spend my time. And I definitely didn't want to contribute to her feeling that way either. I still don't know how we fell into that, but we definitely did. And I know that we were contributing to each other because we were somebody we were spending a ton of time with. And so you have to really take a look at the way that you're spending your time and the people that you have around you, whether that's people at work being crazy negative about everything. Do you have a friend who is kind of always making passive aggressive comments? Do you have a significant other or someone you hope would be a significant other that is not treating you in a way that you would like to be treated, is not showing you kind of the love and respect that you would want from a partner? Whatever it is, you need to start looking at who you're spending your time with and who you're putting your attention towards. So even if it's someone that you don't spend a lot of time with, but you are thinking about, talking to yourself about, even having mental conversations with, what type of reflection is that person in your life? How are you allowing them to affect the way that you see yourself, the way that you talk to yourself, and the way things are going for you? And this goes the same for the conversations you're having about yourself to yourself. Are you talking to yourself? Are you saying things about you and in relation to you that are aligned as the person that you want to be, the way that you want to see yourself? If you're attempting to be your healthiest self and yet every day you're kind of belittling yourself for your eating choices or the fact that you didn't do as much as you think you should have done for working out, or you quote unquote ate the wrong foods or whatever else that it is, that's not in alignment. Those are not the ways that you should talk to yourself. Start to really focus, like we've talked about in previous weeks. Focus in on the small wins. Focus in on this 1% better. Start catching yourself and asking, is this aligned? Is this the way that I want to talk? Is this the way that I view myself? Is it the way that I want to continue viewing myself? And for every negative thought that you had, as cheesy as it sometimes feels, if you're putting yourself down in your own internal dialogue, take a moment and think of something good about yourself. And you may be in a position that's really difficult, but there's got to be something. And it can even be down to, I make my bed really well. I cook a mean spaghetti. I can bake. I'm a great gardener. I have a beautiful smile. People trust me. Whatever it is, there's something good about you. And if you're struggling to find that, ask somebody who cares about you. Like, there's no shame in that. I would actually love if a friend texts me or a loved one texts me and was like, what is something nice about me? What is something that you recognize that's good about me? I would totally be open for a loved one or a friend to reach out to me and ask me like, hey, what's something that you recognize positive in me? What's something good about me? And there is not a single person in my life, even the ones that I can tell are slightly struggling, that I don't have a laundry list of beautiful, wonderful things to say about them. And if you're struggling lately, I would totally reach out to folks that are close to you proactively and just ask and tell the people that love you, you're able to share with them that you're struggling. So reach out to them and say, I'm kind of having a down day and I need to hear XYZ. Is there something nice that you could share about me? And I know that there's some people who have, troubles accepting compliments or hearing compliments. And if you're one of those folks, I understand that. So maybe dig deep in yourself. Think about things that you're really good at, that you do well. If you're funny, if you're a really good dresser, if you have phenomenal hair, you have nice eyebrows, you've got killer legs, trust me, there's something in there that you can identify with yourself that you're really good at, or that looks really nice on you, or that you like about yourself. And start to reframe these negative ways that you're talking about yourself in the inner conversations that you're having, with the consideration in mind of, how am I spending the 95% of my day? Now that I'm focusing on what I'm doing, am I in alignment with what I actually want? Am I in alignment with the identity that I want to have? And I want to share a tool that I have found has worked really well for me and has worked really well for some other folks that I've talked to, about when you get into kind of a negative spiral, right? And your mind is kind of starting to spiral in a direction that you may not want to go. You're not really understanding why, and you're struggling to get yourself out of it. So one of the first things to do is to do some sort of exercise to kind of bring yourself back to calmness. One of the best breathing exercises to do that I have found is a deep breath in, where you are filling your lungs all the way up as much as you can, big deep breath in. And then at the top of that breath, take another quick breath in, like it'll feel like your lungs are about to explode. And then hold it for about 1 second and then release it slowly through your mouth. Usually one breath like this completely changes how I'm feeling. It just does something to my nervous system that kind of stops me in my tracks and makes me consider what I'm doing, and I'm able to stop and refocus. If you need to do like 2 or 3 of those, totally fine. You might feel a little lightheaded, so you may not want to do it while you're driving. So maybe while driving, only do 1. But then, if you're able to pull over, you can do a couple, bring yourself back. Then from there, start to get really curious. What is the emotion that I'm feeling? Why am I feeling that way? Was there a cue that triggered me to go down this path? What is the habit loop that I've created that has placed me here now? Who is the ideal self that I am embodying? What would that person think? How would I address myself and talk to myself in this situation if I was my ideal self? I was my ideal identity and living the life that I want. And start to get really curious, especially about your emotions. What am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? Is it physical? Is it only emotional? Was there a cue or a trigger that kind of put me into this space? Is there something that I can focus on that's a little bit different? And the more curious you get, the less that you're able to kind of continue down that same path. Now your brain has something else to think about. We're not thinking about the negative thing. We're getting curious about the way that we feel and the way that we want to feel. The thoughts that we're having versus the thoughts that we want to have. And if you're still struggling at that point, then I always like kind of doing, I don't know if people call it grounding. I've always called it grounding, where I identify 5 things that I can see and I track those. Okay, I can see this, I can see that, 5 things. Then I go down and I identify 4 things that I can feel. If I'm sitting in my car, I can feel, the steering wheel in my hands. I can feel, myself sitting against the seat, etc. I go through 4 of those. Then I do 3 things that I can hear. So I become very quiet and I focus on what are 3 things that I can hear right now. Then I go to 2 things that I can smell. So really focus in, and it's quite amazing when I do this one, the smells that come up that I'm like, well, I didn't recognize that before. Maybe wish I hadn't now at this point, but it's here and this is the position that we're in. And sometimes it's really beautiful where I'm like, oh my gosh, I can smell that it rained recently, or I can smell fresh cut grass. I can smell roses, I can smell whatever. And it's really just a nice, I'm very scent oriented. So it's a nice way for me, I can smell my own perfume, whatever it is. And then I do one that I can taste. And so I go down this and I'm grounding myself. And so I have, 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can feel, 3 things that I can hear, 2 things that I can smell, 1 thing that I can taste. And if I mix those up, I don't think I did. Or if you mix them up while you're doing it, and instead you want to do 5 things that you can feel, 4 things that you can see, by all means, you can mix it up whichever way that you want. So don't get too focused on that. We're really just grounding ourselves in being calm. So you want to get curious about yourself, figure out a breathing exercise that helps you calm down and become centered, and then start to focus on the things that are around you so that you can ground yourself back into your present moment. And a reminder that these thoughts are just thoughts. So if you're getting frustrated with yourself that you're having to do this repeatedly, give forgiveness. Don't worry about that. It really doesn't matter. I remind myself a lot of, oh, that's just an old way of thinking. It's unfortunately a habit loop that I created in my head because I continually repeated this. And so now it's kind of there in my neurons and I'm just going to correct it. And because I created it, I can create something different. So I'm not too worried about it. And I just let the thought go. So you can give yourself very simple reminders. Just let that thought go. And it becomes easier in time, especially as your mindset shifts, your state of being shifts, your identity shifts. All of this starts to shift and suddenly you're like, wow, this is actually going much better for me than it has in the past. And I'm able to ground myself. I'm able to bring myself back. I'm able to identify the emotions that I'm actually feeling and identify the thoughts that I don't want to feel and shift those very gently and stop beating myself up, stop getting frustrated with myself and just allow it to be what it is. And what it is just a thought. I feel like I gave a lot in this episode, and I hope that it wasn't too much. We talked about the way that you're talking to yourself, the way you're spending 95% of your day, the way that you're talking to others in your head, your perceptions and kind of how you're giving of yourself, the importance of being a bit selfish and prioritizing yourself in life, because the more that you do, the more that you can give to those that are around you and that you love and care about. And that even for me extends to this podcast or any of the content that I put out. Because I'm focusing more on myself, I'm able to give more out to the world, to be honest with you. These things really helped me. And it's coming from somebody who is like, I did this and it helped. And this helped me get into a life that I really wanted and focus on the things that I really want and feel good in the morning. And it was because it was all internal. This had nothing to do with my family. It had nothing to do with my friends. It had nothing to do with where I was living or any of that. It all came from my own self-perception and my ability to shift that using a process of just getting curious about myself, looking at the habits that I was having, identifying the way that I was feeling, and deciding how I actually wanted to be. And it wasn't fake. It was a very natural transition. So we also talked about your environment and the way that you're setting yourself up for success and the people that you are hanging out with and the things that you're doing. And I know something for me that I promote all the time is doing this list of joys. So if you're new here or if you don't remember and need a refresher, I recommend that you do a list of simple joys. Some can be bigger, right? Like I don't live near the beach, but I definitely have watching the ocean on my list because it's so calming and I just love it. But I also have things like enjoying a morning cup of coffee or sitting out in the sun, smelling flowers. Like I love flowers and I like to actually stop on my walk and smell the roses, literally. And so you do this list of joys. And each day you take a look at that list and you add something from that list into your day. And you may find like there was somebody on my YouTube once who posted that they did their list and they wrote out how much they enjoy to play guitar. And they picked up the guitar that day and played it for the first time in a really long time. And I just found that really beautiful because it's so nice to know that it can be something simple that you used to love. And you just kind of needed that reminder that, hey, I enjoy this. I should do this for myself because I enjoy it. So it's really important that you just take those moments and add them to your day. And then while you're doing them, like me drinking the cup of coffee, I recognize like, oh, I enjoy this. I'm doing this for myself. I can feel it. I can smell it. I can be here present and really appreciate this moment of my life. My cousin recently sent me a message And she said that she was making some chicken, and instead of just dumping the sauce in, she did like a swirly design on the sauce. And her first thought was, oh, that kind of made me happy. And then her second thought was, wow, there's something so little that I can add to my day that just brought me some joy and some happiness to the day. And it's those moments that are really special, and they bring up the natural feeling of gratitude. And that's it, then it's no longer forced, right? You're not faking gratitude. You're actually feeling it because you're doing something for yourself that feels good, that you enjoy. And it's important to do those things, whether it feels mentally, emotionally, or physically good. It's important to take those moments out for yourself and then focus on them and say, wow, this is something I can do that brings me some joy in my day. And when you fill your 95% with stuff like this, you're naturally raising your vibration. You're naturally raising your feelings of gratitude and thankfulness. And the more that you focus on that and the things that bring you joy, the more that that's what you start to notice. That's what you perceive. That's what you start to receive in life. And so it's really just these very simple steps to really improve your life day after day by getting 1% better and focusing on it every day and bringing up these moments of gratitude. So I certainly hope that you enjoyed today's episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. And if you have any comments or want to reach out, I'll put my email in the show notes. By all means, send me any questions that you have, comments. I would love to hear from you. And until next week, I hope you have a wonderful week and all the best. Hey y'all, thanks again for joining me today. I absolutely love doing this podcast and I hope that you're enjoying it as well. If you did, I would like to ask you a favor and either please subscribe or leave me a rating and a review. It definitely helps me get my message out to more people and I would really appreciate it. You can also find me on Instagram at Unleashing Happiness Podcast and I have my website, ceciliahendricks.com.